our first song.
Just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today. 'Cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. Yeah, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'm happy to stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I got this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains, unseen shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say. I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'm happy to stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt about this land. God bless the USA.
Welcome. The bell that I rang before the service is the bell that gets rung every week at our weekly Sertoma meetings. And as far as long as I can remember, Jim probably made the bell when he was a kid. On behalf of the Robinson family, I'd like to welcome you to this memorial service. It really is beautiful that during times like these, you can set all those worldly distractions aside and just focus on our relationships with each other. And in this case, our relationships were brought together by a common bond, a man we all know as Robbie. My name is Dan Speck, and Robbie began to impact my life when I was 6 years old and began to play youth baseball. And as recently as just a couple of weeks ago, we spoke on the phone about the happenings in the community, and naturally, we just laughed about our likely misguided opinions. No conversation with Robbie was ever boring. I got to know Robbie best during these last 20 years as a fellow Saratoman. And if he were here today, I think he would expect at least 3 things from us. One, he'd prefer that we stretch the truth just a little bit, maybe even a lot, about the stories we're going to tell. Next, he'd prefer that we laugh at those stories, even though they're at his expense. And finally, to keep this program shorter than a Super Bowl halftime show. So with that, please enjoy this video tribute to Robbie, his family, and his friends. I'd like to invite up our first speaker, Dr. Wayne Kendall, Superintendent of the Yankton Public Schools.
I can't believe I have to go after that. That was really nice. And, you know, family. And that's what Jim was all about. So, what a nice tribute. I want to personally thank Pat and her family for asking me to speak today. The honor is certainly mine, as there are many here today who have known Robbie much longer than I, and probably have some really interesting stories that they could share. What a beautiful article in the P&D yesterday. Nick and Don did a wonderful job. The quote Don Casey had about Jim regarding golf was hilarious. So if you missed it, are we playing summer rules or winter rules? And Jim would reply, there are no rules. Nick, your comments about your grandpa's love for the grandchildren and great-grandchildren was spot on, just like the video. I know this for sure, Jim loved his family immensely. Often when visiting with Jim, he told me something about his family or a family member, and it was always about good things. Proud comments, like a husband or a dad or a grandpa should do. A few days ago, before his passing, I saw Jim twice down at Sertoma Park, watching a grandson play baseball, and I figured it out that it was probably Matt's son. It was hotter than heck both days, and there he was, pushing along in his walker and wearing those battery packs, which kept his heart going. And as we all know, he did this because of his love for his grandson, for baseball, and Sertoma Park. On one of those occasions, I went and got Jim a cold bottle of water and had a short visit. On the other, it was a quick hello and passing. My regret is not taking more time to just sit and visit longer, not knowing that he would pass away less than a week later. I regret not taking the time as I was in a hurry. We all know about being in a hurry. I will always appreciate seeing him in an environment that he really loved, baseball, Sertoma Park, and watching a grandchild in an activity. Over the course of many discussions the past several years, Jim told me about his family and spoke of you often. Here are some things I remember about some of you and what your grandpa, dad told me more than once. Ellie, isn't she a terrific girl and sweet too? And you are. That Patrick, he's something special, always there when you need him. Nick, he will be a professional reporter someday, probably the next Tom Brokaw from Yankton. And he said that more than once. Matt, he is quite the dad. Kobe, he started that alumni basketball for the Bucks basketball. He sure knows how to run a tournament and raise money for a great cause. This one I never figured out. I worry someday about that Jamie. She's gonna get hurt by a bull. Jamie, did you ride a bull at one time? Or you own Bucky bulls, okay. Anytime he would speak to Cooper, he'd reference, Coop, what a kid. Nikki is a heck of a teacher. You know that, don't you? Give Jill a call. She'll tell you what I need and may tell you, don't listen to Dad. And this was actually in reference to how to get Robbie into a Buck football game with his new battery packs, for which I almost lost your dad on a makeshift wheelchair ramp at Crane Youngworth. But we did it. I know I did not get everybody mentioned here, but believe me, he loved all of you very much. Pat, I'll never forget the love Jim had for you. Several years ago when Matt was in middle school and I was principal, Jim called me and asked if we could meet. He came right over to the school and told me that you were having a procedure done and he needed to get Matt. As we stood by Matt's locker, I could see a tear come to his eye. I put my arm around him and I told him, Pat will be fine. And then he told me, just as he adjusted his glasses, and with a smile, "Hell, Pat, she's tougher than I am." In 2005, Robbie received the Time Magazine Quality Dealer Award, considered the automobile industry's highest award for car dealers. As I recall, it was given at a huge awards ceremony with several thousand people in attendance. A well-deserved award for Robbie and his family. Over the years, I had purchased a number of vehicles from Jim, and around the same time as he had received his award, I had purchased a used turquoise Ford Taurus, and according to Jim, who sold it to me, it was a hot deal. And by the way, if any of you know Bob Leonard, he always has a hot deal too. So I've concluded this: it must have been something from that era of people. This is what I have concluded about car dealers over the years, including Jim. This is a hot deal. I'm not making any money on this deal. And there's somebody else who wants to buy it, so I need to know. So I bought it, and I had the darn thing for maybe 2 weeks, and I hated it. Matter of fact, I took it back to Jim, and I told him I can't do it. It's a terrible color, uncomfortable seats. I felt like I was getting into an inflatable bouncy house. I'm not sure what I meant there. And the cigarette lighter did not work. The only question that Robbie had for me was, what would our middle school principal want with a cigarette lighter working? I had no answer. But if it were today, perhaps I might have told him it's for recreational marijuana. Just to see what he would do. The point of this story was I really should have never taken the Taurus back to him. But I did, and he was nothing but gracious. He was indeed well deserving of the Time Magazine Quality Dealer Award. As I conclude, there are some local names I want to mention this afternoon to all of you, and a quote from them. Marion Gunderson: disagree without being disagreeable and get on with it. And we could sure use a lot of that today. Laddie and Doris Simple: I'm always here for you. Just let me know if you need something or want to talk. That came from Laddie. Larry and Diane Ness: to whom much is given, much is expected. It is great to be able to share. It's humbling to be able to share. That was from Diane Ness. Rudy and Kathy Gershka: I can't repeat anything Rudy has shared with me. By the way, it's also true of Robbie. I can't repeat much of what he told me over the years either. But in all honesty, Rudy and Kathy are some of the kindest people I know. And Jim and Pat Robinson: I've always thought that any business person who is successful in their community is responsible for giving back to that community. And that was a Jim Robinson quote. These were some of the first great people I met 30 years ago moving to Yankton. They've inspired my leadership as well as my personal and professional life. In all that they do or have done, they have kept their community and others' needs at the forefront. They have affirmed the golden rule: you do unto others as you would have them do unto you. My son told me the other day, Dad, you know what I remember about Robbie? Somebody told me one time when Robbie was leaving at home from one of the families at Christmas time where they had dropped off presents in a tree, Robbie walked out with tears in his eyes and said, "We didn't do enough. Next year, we're going to do more." This is the Jim Robinson that I always remember. He was kind, giving, thoughtful, and fun. Just ask any of his grandkids. Thank you, Pat, for asking me to share with your family and friends here today. Peace and blessings to your family.
never capture you, and the famine will bring you no fear. Under his wings your refuge, his faithfulness your shield.
And he will raise you up on eagle's wings. There you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. You need not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day. The thousands fall around you, near you it shall not come. And he will raise you up on eagle's wings. There on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. For to his angels he's given a command to guide you in all your ways. Upon their hands they will bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. And he will raise you up on eagle's wings. There you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. In the palm of his hand.
Our next speaker is Dr. Tim Berry.
You know, nothing's worse than getting to a podium and you've lost your notes, you know, I tell you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And welcome to Laddie Simple Arena on the campus of Mount Marty University. And I've wanted to say that for many, many years. And so, Dr. Wong, I congratulate you. And as I told you, things really took off the day I left here. And look at this wonderful facility and the new arena, etc. Today we celebrate the life of Jim Robinson. And thank you, Pat, for the privilege of speaking here today. You know, we've been on the road from West Virginia, and we had a family and friends tour, and we went through the Midwest. And on the way, I said, Ronnie, we have to stop in Yankton. I haven't been back in 11 years. But we have to stop. I want to see Robbie. The next day he called or texted me. And I think it's highly ironic. In Laddie Simple Arena on Charlie Bender's court, we celebrate the life of Jim Robinson. You know, 3 loyal sons of Yankton and 3 loyal sons of Mount Marty. And it's so appropriate, I think Robbie would be so happy to join his friends as we celebrate his life today. My condolences to Pat and the Robinson Nation of children and grandchildren and spouses and in-laws, etc. This is really, really, truly a testimony. When I received that text, I wrote down a life well lived. And if you take a look at the pictures and the mementos on the table, and please do, you will see examples of a life well lived. And Robbie shared his well-lived life with us. And the intent that he had was that all of our lives would be well-lived. Not because of him, but because of the gifts that we've all been given. And like him, hopefully we would share those gifts with a world so desperately in need of people like Jim Robinson. Throughout my years that I've been gone, I've been in several states, and I'd call Robbie from time to time. And my intention was to ask Robbie how he was doing. And I found out that Robbie wanted to know how I was doing, how we were doing. And so we flipped the conversation, and I never really got around to asking how Robbie was doing. But I sure as heck better know my homework about how we were doing. And I think that says so much about him as a person. Robert Greenleaf wrote a wonderful book on me, and it's called On Becoming a Servant Leader. The servant leader is a servant first. It begins with a natural feeling that one wants to serve. And in doing so, secondly, to make people who work with the servant even better. So think with me the thousands and millions of memories we have of Jim Robinson. Did those who serve grow as people? Did you grow as a person? I can tell you I did. I was always refreshed. I was fed. There was always a joke, a quip, a situation that I was freer to serve others. I was more like all of you because you too were caught up in the Robbie environment. I think Ron Hagelin wrote, it was always an experience to visit the dealership when Robbie was there. And it was sort of like Cheers. Everybody knew your name. Everybody had a smile on their face. And I always remember Tom walking around. Who can forget Tom? And Robbie said to me one day, if you want to know what's going on, telegraph, telephone, or tell Tom. But Tom was, I think, probably the illustrative example of Robbie's life. How Robbie took Tom in, adopted him as a brother, a son, or a father for that matter. And how happy Tom was. Every time I saw Tom had a smile on his face, and he was always teasing me about something with Robbie. So it's sort of like Cheers. And I think, Ron, you really captured that. So let's just take a look. And I just wrote some things down. Robbie's life of servitude. Now, to the Sertoma people, it was never Sertoma, it was Seratoma. He never got the word right, but boy, did he live the Sertoma principles. He was president of the Yankton Chamber of Commerce. He was a predecessor of mine. And I, too, was privileged enough to be the president of that. He was a board member at Mount Marty, and I told Mark when I saw him, we have all this hot air flying around the boardroom and all these big ideas, and Robbie would always say, I think we ought to do this. And people would nod. Because it was right. He cut through the crowd. And what he basically wanted was for the institution to be better, for our students to be better, and frankly, for all of us to be better. He was a loyal son of the University of South Dakota and the University of Iowa, and said that he got a degree in BS from both institutions. I believe that. Probably with honors, if I do say so. But he gave so much of himself. He gave everything that he could give at the time that he could give it. Of his time, his talent, his energy, and his resources, his treasure. I have one example of Robbie's life. One time, we've had season tickets to the Kansas City Chiefs for years. And so we kept them when we moved up here. And we went to a Chiefs game on a Sunday in a snowstorm. And Robbie picked me up at 6 in the morning. He drove, he paid the gas, he bought lunch and dinner. And I think I said, "Hello, Robbie, how are things going?" And all the way down the back, he told me how things were going. He told me about every one of you and how proud of you he was, and how Wayne said that. And I've never forgotten that day. We got home, I think, at 1 o'clock in the morning and went into overtime. It was the longest day of my life in some ways. But Robbie was just delighted to have the opportunity, just the two of us, to talk about things. And it's something, again, I'll never forget. When Pat texted me, I wrote 9 principles down about Robbie's life. I didn't have any books or anything, I just wrote integrity. What Robbie did, he wanted to do well. Honesty. A sense of community. Robbie is the billboard for Yankton, South Dakota. It was in his blood, his guts, everything. Friendship and loyalty. Every time we talked, he asked about our son Matt, who went to school here. Family, humor, and fun. Robbie made even the dullest day an interesting day. I can tell you. Just tell me how the weather is. Usually came up with something very interesting. There was a gentleness about him, wasn't there? I mean, sure, Robbie had his loud days and the stories, etc., but there was a gentleness, a caring, and again, a sense of service. So, to conclude, I can't read my own writing, that's the problem. I want you to know. I should stand back here. Robbie was the ultimate storyteller. And he assuredly added a little bit to all of his stories. He blessed us with his presence, with his stories. He made our story a better story. I will miss it. And unfortunately, we didn't get there, Pat, in time for a little visit. We'll be back. May Robbie rest in peace. May God bless all of us who follow in Robbie's footsteps.
Oh, good. Sing along in the crowd. You know the song. We're going to have you sing the chorus with us.
I heard there was a secret chord that David played and pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do ya? It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing Alleluia.
Alleluia. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
They say I took the name in vain, though I didn't really know the name. But if I did, well, really, what's it to ya? There's a blaze of light in every word. It doesn't matter what they heard. The holy are the broken. Hallelujah. 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 I did my best, maybe not that much. I couldn't feel and I tried to touch. I told the truth, I didn't come to fool ya. And even though at times went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Our final speaker today is Robbie's grandson, Nick Robinson.
I think it's pretty fitting to celebrate my grandpa's life that we do it in a gym he loved nonetheless. Pretty surreal walking in here, getting the chills, goosebumps, just from all the memories, especially here. We pointed out his chair that he always sat at, and I think this might be the first time I've been in this gym, and he hasn't been here, so. The motto for Robinson Motors, and I can hear it being played on the radio in my head. We're going places, come along for the ride. Well, Grandpa, I think it's time we go on one last ride together. The feeling that stuck with me the last couple weeks since he's passed is honor. To be a part of a man's life that truly cared. He cared about people and the things he loved immensely. The stories we have heard over the past few days are enough for a lifetime. And it proved what we knew. He was someone who went out of his way for people, and he wanted nothing in return. Grandpa Robbie had such a great impact on my life, from when I was born to when he passed away. He even came up with my name, right before Christmas. If he told my mom, if he does not come soon, we're going to have a St. Nicholas. My mom was not thinking of that name before, but it was only fitting that my middle name would be after the man who helped make me too. From a young age, he showed me what hard work and dedication is all about. He was at the dealership from before the sun came up to when the sun came down. Unless it was summer, he saved just enough time to hop on the riding mower to make sure his lawn was in tip-top shape. That was just who he was. He worked hard and was very competitive. He was driven to work, yet just be the best he could. Even though perfect was not in his dictionary, he was always right. The competition didn't end with work. I remember every Sunday, he had to have the first tea time at Hillcrest, and would be upset if he didn't get it. The rounds of golf usually started and ended with him losing money, but it didn't stop him from trying. No matter how busy he was with work or in the community, he always made time for family. He never missed a home event for his kids or grandkids, and I know that's something that my family holds close to their hearts. As I grew up, I discovered my love for sports through him, and unfortunately that includes the Minnesota Vikings. Of the countless major events and stories that I've heard from him, my favorite is the 1982 Super Bowl. He got a fake CBS reporter pass from his great friend Tom Rogoff, and as they're going through the game, as the game ends, he gets in the media area and is interviewing players. Well, of course, knowing my grandpa, he has to have his Polaroid out and is taking pictures everywhere. He looks to his left and feels a tap on his shoulder, and he looks over and it's O.J. Simpson. O.J. looks at him and says, "What are you doing? Reporters aren't here taking pictures. You're here covering the game." And he's, befuddled because it's O.J. Simpson. And then O.J. looks at his press pass and says, "This is fake." My grandpa essentially crapped his pants, didn't really know what to say. And then seconds later, O.J. says, "Let me see those tickets you have." My grandpa hands them to him. O.J. signs them. walks away and says, I think these are going to be worth a little bit more. I think that day terrified my grandma because he brought her with. But looking back, it's truly something we laugh at and say, only grandpa would get that close to getting caught, but yet pull it off. Growing up, his role with Northland Ford provided our family with a lot of great opportunities, especially many Minnesota pro sporting events. Going to Mankato each year for Vikings training camp is a memory that we all hold dear to our heart. I remember one year we were getting ready to leave, and all the cousins thought it would be funny to hop on the elevator and go to floor 8. And then our grandparents went to 8. We went to 2. They went to 2. We went to 5. It was just a nonstop, battle. Finally, they caught us. My grandpa said a lot of words that I probably shouldn't repeat, and immediately called all of our parents and said, hey, I don't think we're going to go to training camp. We are going to come home. 15 minutes later passed, we're on the way to training camp. After it ended, well, we're supposed to go to the Twins game. I don't think we're going to go to the Twins game. Still upset. We ended up going to the Twins game, of course. He couldn't miss it. But that just showed, just as how big of a kid he was himself, and that he was willing to give us a second chance, and whether we deserve that is still kind of up for debate. At the end of high school, I found a love for writing, and especially about sports. I was so nervous to really just go for it. That wasn't a popular niche. A lot of my friends wanted to be nurses, lawyers, doctors, teachers. After my first article in the school newspaper, I sat down with my grandpa and we talked about it. He told me if I loved it and I could make a living off of it, go for it, but only do it if you're going to give 100%. I never looked back. Last year I was able to graduate from the University of South Dakota with a degree in media and journalism, a place so very near and dear to my grandpa's heart. There was no better feeling that day than knowing how proud he was that I was not only following my dreams, but doing it at a place where we had spent so much time growing up. I'm going to cherish all the memories, conversations, and stories shared throughout the years. Throughout my life, I have always wanted to make Grandpa Robbie proud and carry on his legacy. Boy, are those some big shoes to fill. Today is a sad day, but we have so much to hold our heads high about. I still have my #1 supporter cheering me on, but now just from a distance. This is when all those conversations, memories, and stories come into play, and it's time to put together everything he's taught me. Right before he passed, the chaplain said there was always that one person that guides them after they pass away and shows them the ropes. Our whole family looked at each other and knew instantly that Tom Fitzgerald is that person that's showing you the ins and outs. Tom, Grandpa, please make sure you take good care of each other, but also, please don't drive each other too nuts. Grandpa Robbie always said, I want the Vikings to put me down in my grave so they can let me down one last time. Grandpa, I hate to break it to you, but that's not going to be happening today. However, if you just wait till the fall, they're definitely going to make up for it. Grandpa, I love you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nick. Pat and her family would like to take this time to thank Mount Marty University and Winston Ray Funeral Home for putting on such a nice event. Really does seem natural that would happen right here on a gymnasium floor. Special thanks to Dr. Kendall and to Dr. Barrett for presenting, and some beautiful words by Nick. Thank you to Ted and Jennifer Powell for making it happen on the fly. It was beautiful. And thank you to the Eaton Search-Holmans. Robbie was a Search-Holman for more than 50 years. It'll be hard to hear that bell ring and not see him across the table munching on some pizza. After the final farewell song, you're all invited to the Lantern Landing above, where there'll be some fellowship and some refreshments. And lastly, I can't help myself to think about the poem on the inside cover of the program as I read it last night. It reads in part, God saw he was getting tired and a cure was not to be, so he put his arms around him and whispered, come with me. And I truly believe that God whispered that in Robbie's ear in 2013 when his health problems kind of began and his health began to decline. And I'm certain God whispered it several times in the last 8 years. And Robbie told me, I've got a little more fighting. I'm not ready to go yet. He told me that several times. Well, just days ago, the whisper came again. Come with me. And knowing everything was in place with his family, Robbie finally agreed. May the Lord bless Jim Robinson eternally, and may God wash his gentle love over each of us from this day forward. And I'd just like to ask, who gives a hoot about Robbie? That's a little family joke. So for closing, this song is a perfect tribute to our beloved Robbie.
Pastor will conclude our service here today for Robbie. As Dan mentioned, the family invites everyone up to the Lancer Landing to join them in refreshments and fellowship. So as we process out with the family, we can all make our way through the doors off to the side and follow the family as they make their way.